Greetings, my friends. Good morning. It's kind of serious. I feel like it's like a press briefing. Like we're talking about like global affairs. Good morning, friends. Welcome to today's press briefing. I'd be a good like White House spokesman, wouldn't I? Except I say bad words. Guys, what's up? If you don't have your good coffee mugs, you should get some. Everyone needs to have a couple of good coffee mugs. What's happening, guys? So today's a special morning because I'm going to share this morning my favorite book, my number one book of all time. If I could recommend one book to any human being on the planet, this is it. You too, Rob. You too, sir. I like your attitude first thing in the morning. Have a great fucking day, Rob says. Rob's going to be at the race. Rob, I'm excited to see you in Vegas, my friend. I'm excited to see you. So guys, I'm going to be brief this morning because I'm going to share two things with you. One, a huge insight that I got this morning. And two, I'm going to share with you my favorite book of all time. The number one book. I've given away probably 300, 400 copies of this book since 98. So 98 was when I went and I was a Mormon missionary. And I first learned of this book when I was a Mormon missionary. And I've probably read it 200 times. It's a really short book. It's a really good book. But I've given away hundreds of copies of this. In fact, what's funny is this is Katie's copy. And I wrote her a little note, and she told me that this was one of the very first gifts that I gave her when we first started dating, right?
Yes.
One of the very first things. I wrote her a little note in it. You can't really see. So guys, there's books and then there's books. There's books that move you. There's books that change your life. This book changed my life. And if you ever meet me, if you ever see me, if I'm in an airport, if I'm in a hotel, if I'm traveling the world, I will never be without this book. This book goes with me everywhere. It's, in my opinion, it's the greatest book ever written. It's inspired me, motivated me, changed my way of thinking more than any other book on the planet. Do you want to see what it is? This is my favorite book. This is what I read this morning. As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. It is my favorite book. If I was to recommend any book to any human being ever on the planet, it's this. As a Man Thinketh. So if you have not read this book, I highly recommend it. I highly recommend it for a lot of different reasons. Read it and then you'll understand why. But this morning I was reading. I want to share one thing that I learned with you. The very, very beginning. This was sitting on Katie's counter, and as I picked it up and as I was reading, I've shared this with my clients. I share this wherever I travel, whenever I'm speaking, whenever I have a speaking engagement. I'm constantly quoting from this book. Listen. Mind-bending stuff. The funny thing too about these books, guys, and me sharing a lot of this stuff, and me having conversations. I had a conversation with a friend last night. I went to the Jazz game, and we were sitting there talking, and I was talking to him about a book that I'd read called Sex at Dawn, which is a phenomenal book about like intimacy and sex, and more than just sex. It's like the carnal nature and the relationship between man and woman. We're like talking about deep shit, and you could see people around us kind of going, like looking and whatever. Because you start talking deep, you start thinking deep, you start asking different questions of what most people ask, and it's awkward for people. It's weird. They're like, what are they talking about? Why would they ask these questions? It's awkward. It's weird, right? Like, this isn't hokey pokey shit. A lot of people have asked me, like, Sean, how did you go from multimillionaire at a young age to broke and bankrupt and divorced? Like, how did you rebuild? How did you get your mind right? Those of you that have been divorced know how big of a mindfuck a divorce is. Those of you that have gone through massive financial loss know how big of a mindfuck it is to like try and put yourself back out there. People ask me all the time, like, how did you do it? Like, how did you go from kind of the top of the mountain to crashing and burning and then building it back up? This first chapter explains exactly how. And every single human being, man, woman, child, can read this book. And it's the exact same. It's the exact same principles. It's the exact same laws. And this is why I literally read this book almost daily. Like, this book is everywhere. I have copies on my desk in my office, copies at my house. I have probably, 10 copies of this floating around my house. You know what I mean? And I'm always picking this book up and reading it because there's constant nuggets. What's up, Mr. Hackelman? This is without question the greatest book ever written. Without question. If I could recommend one book, give one book to any human being ever, it is this book. And this is why. A man's mind may be likened to a garden, which may be intelligently cultivated or allowed to run wild. But whether cultivated or neglected, it must and will bring forth. This is something I didn't understand. Like, I was banging my head against the wall with anger, frustration, expecting to create wealth. I was banging my head against the wall with anger and frustration, expecting to get this positive result with my ex-wife. I was like filling my mind with all of this frustration and anger, expecting that I was going to get this huge dividend and this huge result. Whatever we put, our mind is a garden, whatever we put into it, like, it will grow something. Something will grow. Something will come out of this mind. If no useful seeds are put into it, then an abundance of useless seeds will fall therein and will continue to produce their kind. Listen, if no useful seeds are put into it, if nothing useful is put in here, if you're not constantly studying, constantly going after growth, constantly going after new enlightenment, new inspiration, new ideas, new movement, new vision, everything. You're one of my favorite quotes is, the idle time is the devil's workshop. Idle time is the devil's workshop. When you're not putting shit in here constantly, I mean, those of you that have literally grown a legitimate garden, you're constantly pruning, you're constantly working it, you're constantly tilling it, you're constantly watering it. Do you have any tissues? My nose is like running. Thank you. If you're not doing anything with the garden, the weeds will grow. Plain and simple, done and done. If no useful seeds are put into it, then the abundance of useless weeds will fall therein and will continue to produce their kind. Just like a gardener cultivates his plot, keeping it free from weeds and growing the flowers and fruits which he requires, so may a man tend the garden of his mind, weeding out all the wrong, useless, and impure thoughts and cultivating towards perfection, thank you, the flowers and fruits of right, useful, and pure thoughts. By pursuing this process, a man sooner or later discovers that he is the master gardener of his soul, the director of his life. Now, people be like, Sean, that's hokey pokey. That's stupid. Oh. That's all kinds of like hippy dippy shit. Is it? Is it? I mean, is it really? Because guys like me and millions of men and women around the planet who have gone through perilous times, who have gone through darkness, who have gone through these different things, have done this. Oh, dude, it's all hippy-dippy shit. I just get up and I work every day and I freaking bust my ass and I come home and I just be a good man. Cool, well, you're freaking pissed off and you're angry, just like I was, and you're not getting the results that you want. Huh? He also reveals within himself the laws of thought and understands with ever-increasing accuracy how the thought forces and mind elements operate in the shaping of his character, circumstances, and destiny. Think about that. He also reveals within himself the laws of thought. The laws of thought. There are laws with thought. Just like there's laws with the garden. If you don't water it, it will die. If you don't nourish it, if you don't prune, if you don't do the things that the garden needs, it will die. Your mind is the exact same. Your mind is the exact same. Your mind literally is the exact same. He also reveals within himself the laws of thought and understands with ever-increasing accuracy how thought forces and mind elements operate in the shaping of his character, circumstance, and destiny. I wanted to reshape my circumstance. I wanted to reshape my destiny after my divorce. with this insane relationship that she and I had, this anger, this frustration. I wanted to reshape it. And want to know how I reshaped it? It wasn't like buying her flowers. It wasn't buying her things. It wasn't trying to like send a different kind of nasty text message. It was 150% reshaping this. Putting different things in here, reprogramming this. This is how I created the relationship that I did with my ex-wife. After we literally picked up and dropped off our kids from a police station for 6 months. We had to have a police escort. That's how bad it was. How did I reshape it to where we're hanging out now when we're friends and we're good? 100% right here. Final thought for you from my friends. From the same book. Those of you that are still asking and are just tuning in. The greatest book ever written. My favorite book. As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. Final thought for you, which just goes along with exactly what we were talking about. I just flip through and the things underline and I read and I've read this book so many times I pretty much know where everything is in it. Men are anxious, listen to this, men are anxious to improve their circumstances, but are unwilling to improve themselves. They therefore remain bound. Men are anxious. We all want to be ripped. But we don't want to stop eating like shit. We all want to be rich, but we want to play Halo for 5 hours every single night. Men are anxious to improve their circumstances, but are unwilling to improve themselves. They therefore remain bound. I want to have a good relationship with my ex-wife, but I want to keep being an asshole. I want to grow a company and I want to have a business that thrives, but I'm just going to keep playing video games and jerking around and not working. So my friends, this book changed my life. I read it for the very first time in 1998, and I've read it hundreds of times since. You will not ever meet me or find me without having this book in my briefcase, in my hotel room, anywhere that I am. It's the greatest book ever written. It's completely changed my world, completely changed my life. I read from it this morning. It motivated me and it inspired me. And I would highly recommend this book to everyone. That's it. You guys are awesome. God bless America.